Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host. Enjoying some pretty cold winter temperatures in New Jersey. I tell you, I'm not used to scraping ice off my car in the mornings, and I feel like I'm already complaining all the time, and we haven't even had real snow yet. It's supposed to get very cold this weekend, and actually I'm happy about that because guess what? It's Christmas. Today's episode, however, is not a Christmas episode. Or maybe it is. I know I've done some more festive, light-hearted, Christmas-themed ones in the past, but this one is not like that. It's a conversation that goes quite deep and is a lot more lacking the right word here. It's contemplative, maybe. I'm trying to find a good word because in German we talk a lot about Besinnlichkeit around Christmas time. And Besinnlichkeit means kind of time to reflect, slow down, contemplate life, your life and the world around you. And so kind of in stark contrast to the American or British wham bam Santa's here Christmas period. So yes, this episode is kind of fitting for this time of year, I guess. So if you're in the middle of Christmas preparations, running from A to B to C and back and, rushed off your feet and listen to podcasts as background noise, and let's be honest, we all do that from time to time. I do that too. I don't blame you. Anyway, if you're in that more, let's say, hectic mood, then maybe save this episode for another time. And actually, not just this episode, but the next one too, because the two are connected. My guest and I decided right from the beginning to split our conversation into two because we knew we would have way too much to talk about to squeeze it into just one episode. I am talking to Lea, global citizen, TCK, expat. I kind of feel she's ticking all of the boxes here. Lea was born in Israel with a very multicultural background. Her parents from different cultures and her grandparents too. So a real mix of cultures. And she moved from Israel to Canada, then to Switzerland, then back to Israel, to London, Strasbourg, and, well, you'll find out when you listen to the episode. These days, Lea lives in London with her family. She is an author, psychotherapist and coach, and also a trauma counsellor. She's the executive director of UK charity Act for Change, which focuses on helping the vulnerable, such as young people on the streets, single parents, refugees, and other displaced people. In short, people dealing with trauma and crises. I highly encourage you to take a look at the charity website. I've provided all the links in the show notes. Of course, Lea also works with expats, and you'll hear in our conversation how much of her own background comes into play here. Let me just say that if you are an expat in need of therapy, it is absolutely vital to find someone who gets it. We cover a huge amount of issues in our two episodes, issues that arise during expat life, and actually, I'm not sure there's anything we don't talk about. Our topics range from growing up with multiple languages and the effects of that on the psyche, to feeling like you don't belong anywhere, general sense of fragmentation, the eternal question of what is home, etc., etc. We also veer off into another direction and talk about dream figures, which is a subject I had no idea about and Lea has written about extensively. Anyway, enough of me. Let's hear Lea's story. Welcome, Lea, to Transcontinental Overload. So happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So, I feel like you are a guest who combines so many different aspects of expat life because you're a TCK, you're a third culture kid growing up in between cultures, parents from different backgrounds, moving a lot, having a very international
global nomadic life and then settling down kind of, and but also you're mother of two, three third culture kids. So you're a parent, you have a lot of perspective from all different angles. How about you introduce yourself?
Mhm.
Just give us a quick overview of what you're doing, and then we'll talk about your whole story.
I'd love that. Thank you. So I'm a psychotherapist and coach, working with expats and global nomads, and also with people who have trauma and who've got a lot of anxiety these days. You know, today there's so much with the pandemic. There's been such an overload of issues that have come to the surface, and I run a charity working with mental health, particularly for young people and families who've had a challenging time and are vulnerable in one way or another. Generally, there's been abuse or trauma, or the young persons are in gangs, or child sexual exploitation, or school exclusion, the big things.
Yes. And I mean, I agree with you. I think the pandemic brought a lot of things to the surface that were always there or have been apparent, but people maybe didn't used to be so willing to talk about things. And I feel like that period in all its horror, it's kind of given people a platform.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's finally all those things can be talked about.
Yes.
So where are you based, Leah?
So I'm based in London, in the UK. I grew up mainly in Switzerland, in Geneva, but right now, for the past, I'd say 28 years, I'm in London.
Okay. And that's where your children were born and
Yes,
okay.
this is where my children were born.
So let's dive right in there. You ended up in London, but how did you get there? What was your background before that?
Well, I was born in Israel to a Brazilian mother and a Moroccan father. When I was 5, we traveled to Montreal. And when I was 9, we ended up in Geneva, where I grew up. I grew up in an international school, very much as a third culture child, as you say, right? In an international school where, because Geneva is such an international city, people are constantly traveling. So every 2 years, friendships had to be renewed. You know, there's new people.
Yeah.
My classes, you know, I've been a class of 20 people with 18 different nationalities.
Wow. Yeah. So you were exposed to, I mean, just from your own family background, exposed to so many cultures. And you say your parents were both from different countries, but did they meet in Israel?
They
Where,
met me. So,
okay. Because I mean that in itself is that's yet another, it's something you're like a fourth, fifth culture kid, probably with all those influences.
yeah.
I mean, how many languages do you speak? Or how many
I,
languages did you grow up speaking? Let's phrase it like that.
so when I was born, my mom didn't quite know Hebrew well enough.
Hmm.
So she spoke to me in Portuguese. So my first language was Portuguese. And then I learned Hebrew. And then in Montreal, I also added French and English. And then in Geneva, I added Spanish.
Wow.
Um, Spanish because I really wanted to speak to my great grandma. And so Spanish was, you know, she spoke 9 languages. She was from Russia. So
Wow.
I
So we're adding on layers and layers of internationality. That's amazing.
yeah, so that, you know, that was the incentive for learning Spanish.
Hmm. Amazing. And I mean, and we'll talk about languages and all that comes with it in a while, but it must have made you feel more connected also to the people in your family and your surroundings to be able to speak all those languages.
Yes, yes, it did.
I feel it's a very different childhood. A lot of us are growing up speaking one language, learning at least two at school. And that's kind of the I would say the average, I guess. Maybe not here in the US. It's probably less than that, but having that exposure to it from an early childhood must have, I always like to think it wires the brain differently in some ways.
Yeah, I think it does wire the brain differently. And it also depends on how you learn the languages. I tried to read up on this when my kids were really young.
Of course, yeah.
Because my brother and I speak the same languages, but I make more mistakes in my languages than he does, and in the grammar,
Mm-hmm.
and some of it is because of how we learned the language. And
Was he older or younger?
he was younger, but he had a box, a drawer, if you like, for each language.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, I had one drawer.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved from one language to the next in the same sentence,
Yeah.
all the time.
Isn't that amazing how these things happen differently? I vividly remember one of my children. She was fairly young, but she spoke German and English at a young age, pretty much on an equal level. And someone just asked her, "Oh, this is oh, what are you wearing? What do you call that in German?" And she couldn't
Yeah.
figure out what he meant. She just couldn't. She was completely overwhelmed, and she's like, "Oh, so you speak German? What's this in German then?" And it didn't mean anything to her.
Yes.
And I explained to him, I said, this is not, because she doesn't have that concept of the languages being different. She
Yes.
doesn't know that she's speaking two languages. She just,
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I had that experience. I had it several times. Even though I went to school in English,
hmm
in the international school and in Montreal, coming to England, the accent was different, the vocabulary that was used was different, and I didn't quite understand what they were talking.
hmm
Right, the first 6 months was like, and similarly in Israel, when I went back when I was 18, I spoke all the time Hebrew at home, but the Hebrew that they were speaking on the street, I didn't quite understand.
hmm
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited about this conversation. I mean, languages and learning languages, that's my background. I studied
Ah,
translation and interpreting. So
wow.
very interesting experience too, because I had a few people like yourself who grew up speaking several languages. So they could switch from one to the other and everything. And I remember this one girl trying to learn these interpreting techniques, simultaneous interpreting, and she couldn't do it. She spoke four languages fluently. She could not do this. There was just not, and she had to, she gave up. She stopped. She said, I can't, my brain doesn't know how to do this. And I thought
Yes.
that's the most
It,
fascinating thing.
it's something about the way you connect the concepts and the language, right? And a word in one language doesn't exactly translate, even though it's translatable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so we're right into the languages. I wanted to hear your whole story. So, um,
I'll tell you my story, and I'll do it through the languages, right?
perfect.
So my mother spoke to me in Portuguese when I was
Mhm,
born. For the first year, that was the main language I heard. But she was told to stop talking to me in Portuguese because
mhm.
that I'll never learn Hebrew that way, right? So she stopped talking to me in Portuguese. So my Portuguese isn't as good as my other languages. And then at home we always spoke Hebrew, but we would switch, right? So we would switch when we spoke about school, we'd switch into English. When we spoke about stuff that were in
Mhm.
the the local environment, going to the shops or the park, we would speak in French.
Yeah.
And so it was like an outside language and an inside language,
Mhm.
and then English, which became my best language. But it it wasn't to start off with, right?
So, I mean, that fact that she was told to not confuse you, in other words, I mean, that was a very widely believed concept.
Yeah.
And luckily, thankfully, that has changed. I think with all the research that's been done over the last, I want to say 20 years, maybe
Yes.
not even before that, but 20, 25 years, I think it was quite different. But I think it's just so shocking to think, because for me as a mother, to be told not to be able to speak my language to my child,
Yeah.
um, has a huge impact on your bond, I would say. I
Yes.
mean, that's an assumption. I know a lot of people make the decision by themselves. They just say, I can't cope with speaking to two languages. I don't want anyone to hear my language. I don't want them to feel different to everyone else. So I'm sticking to one language. And it is a lot of work bringing up children speaking several
It is.
languages. It's a lot of work. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen just like that. But just the fact I mean, that she had to give that up, her mother tongue, that's
It's huge.
absolutely huge.
Yes. Yes, it is. And she regretted that later, you know.
Well, but I think it's this, that's the conundrum of being a parent, because you were the oldest.
I was the oldest.
So, and I think as a parent, sometimes you don't trust your instincts as much as you should, and you very much listen to what everyone around you is saying. And I think, especially at the time, and if someone says to you, your child will not be able to speak the other language, or will have a delay in speaking, or anything like that, you don't want that for your child. So you very often just listen to the experts, and back then it was a very different tune. So
Yeah.
that's a lifelong thing that you carry with you, isn't it?
It is, and it's part of what I mentioned earlier about the one box, right? So the
Mhm.
research says each language that you learn, if you learn it with a different person, then you hold it in separate boxes.
Mhm.
But my mom spoke to me in Portuguese, and then she also spoke to me in Hebrew. So I had one box for two languages,
Mhm.
and then that added, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's so many aspects to this. But yeah, I mean, coming back to the psychology of it, because I mean, it sounds like all those things, and thinking about someone giving up their language, and that changing, the perspective changing, and the boxes changing. Do you think that was all part of what brought you to your profession?
In a lot of ways, yes. In the sense that psychology is all, for me, is all about understanding different perspectives, different beliefs, different perspectives, different feelings, but it starts with being able to look differently at something, and languages give you that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And growing up like that in different countries and different cultures, and being exposed to that from an early age. I mean, everyone feels that when they travel, I guess, that, oh, I didn't know. And that kind of change of perspective. But living in another culture and being fully immersed is, yeah.
Something else, yes.
Yeah. There have been a lot of articles written about this over the last 10, 20 years, how even you yourself as a person change slightly, or have maybe different, not personalities maybe, but certain things that come out when you speak one language but not the other. And I think, I mean, it's the most fascinating thing for me to
Yes.
think, am I different speaking one language to
I know
another?
that I am different in the different languages. Like French is a more circular language, more flowery, more circular. English is very linear. Hebrew, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but there's not a lot of words in Hebrew. You
Hmm.
each letter, each word has a lot of different meanings in it. And so the way you use the language, the way you approach the thought that you're putting together is different.
Oh, can you give an example? I don't speak any Hebrew, so
Yeah. So there are words in Hebrew that have layers of spiritual meaning behind them. So most of the language comes from biblical Hebrew, but then there's some new words that were made up, created out of those, using the roots of the words Hebrew. So each of those words has layers of meaning that are often biblical, right? And often quite spiritual meanings. And so when you use a word, it has all those other meanings. And English is very different. English has a huge thesaurus and synonyms and
yeah.
antonyms, all that stuff. So there's a richness to the language that you can use to say the same thing. Hebrew, no. Hebrew, to emphasize something, you repeat the same word.
Okay.
With maybe the grammar changes to that, but you repeat it.
Whereas in English, you have 10 words to say the same thing. So I find
Yes.
that so fascinating with English that you have all these different words. I mean, it's compared to German as well. English has a huge
Vocabulary.
vocabulary. But you said earlier, like English is more linear. Do you think is that to do with the grammar?
So just thinking about that, I think in French, you say something and then you say it again slightly differently, and then you conclude by saying it again. In English, you'll say one sentence, then you'll build on it another sentence, and then you'll build another sentence. Right? One thing, one concept, then another concept added to it, and then you build on that another piece. So in that sense, it's linear.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're getting so abstract now without concrete examples. But I think I mean, it's
I don't know how to do.
it's not easy to describe, and I think those listeners who do speak several languages will know exactly what we're talking about. But
Yes.
coming back to the exposure to those different concepts, so you kind of had a way into different viewpoints very early on. So when you decided to study psychology, did you do that in the UK? Did you do that in England?
Well, my first profession was as a lawyer. I studied law at LSE
Okay.
and did international business law.
Hmm.
But then at some point I was invited to run an outreach program for my community. And in doing that, I realized, first of all, it was a success and people wanted more of it. And I wanted to develop it further, but I realized I needed much more skills for that. And so I embarked on my studies as a psychotherapist, doing process-oriented psychology,
Okay.
which helped me in developing what I wanted to work on.
Was it like you had that light bulb moment of this is where I want to, this is the direction I want to go in, and
Yes and no. When I told my parents that I wanted to study law, my dad looked at me a bit shocked, and he was like, "Really? Don't you want to do psychology?" So somewhere there was already that in me.
Mhm.
But there was also a light bulb moment when I realized, oh, there's something important here that I want to work on.
Yeah.
And so yes, there was also that moment, and then that moment of commitment to something. And from that, I set up the charity that I set up.
And I mean, it's all about, I mean, even if you look at law, it's all about communication, isn't it?
It is.
So
It's all about communication and conflict and risk, right? Vulnerability is also about risk.
Mhm. It's probably a very good combination. I feel like maybe lawyers should generally do psychology as well. I
They
think
should.
everybody should do some psychology, actually. Having spent so much time living in other countries and working out things over the years, I think, yeah, it would have been useful to know these things along the way. So, which I guess takes us into your focus on expats and the globally mobile. So I
Yes.
guess it's kind of coming full circle with your background.
So when I looked at what would be the focus for my practice, I looked at who are my clients.
Mhm.
And I have a very international client base. I have people all over the world. I have people who have come from all over the world. And they gravitate to me because of my own personal experience, because I have that background. And also the charity that I run works a lot with, and that's because it's my work, with diversity and how to engage with diversity. And London is a very diverse city, and there's lots of refugees here, and there's lots of people who've experienced war and dislocation for different reasons, good and bad, right? And so I realized that this is really where where I naturally gravitate to.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to complete all your so law degree and then psychology?
So my law
And
degree, I did 4 years because again, I did international law
Mhm.
and European law. And then I worked in that for a while before I started psychotherapy. And then I studied for 15 years and I did a dissertation and I wrote, and out of that, I wrote a book, which I is getting published in 23 in the spring. And there's a second book coming out of that same dissertation. Right?
Okay, tell us more about that.
So it's called Emerging Figures. And as lockdown came in, I decided I'm going to start writing this book that comes out of my dissertation that I already had completed.
Mhm.
I went through my dissertation and because I wrote it as process work oriented psychotherapy. It talks about, amongst other things, dream figures. And so I went through and I counted my dream figures in my dissertation, and there were 36. And so I pulled them out, and on each dream figure, I wrote something. And then I realized what I had done is I had written about 18 dream figures that are really within the realm of trauma.
When you say dream figure, is that someone that appears in your dreams? How do I imagine that? What's a dream figure?
So a dream figure is like an archetype,
Mhm.
right? It's like from Jung, and it's like a particular image. So, for example, I found I have 18 of these figures that are
Mhm.
in a trauma dynamic, meaning 4 of them are like takers that take you over, very strong figures. That might be oppressive. And then 14 of them, or 13 of them, which are taken by these, right? And so they get locked into a dynamic.
Mhm.
But then besides those, I had another 18, and they were different. They were the ones that help you come out of that dynamic and create change for you in your life and
Okay.
help you become more whole. So I wrote about each one of these figures and how to play with these figures so that they don't take us over, but
Mhm.
and don't limit our lives, but that we can be friends with them. and so that was one piece that came out of my dissertation. And the other, my dissertation was called A Body's Call to Presence. And so the other book is different symptoms and little body experiences that I was able to catch, something that belongs to the collective, that isn't really mine only.
Mm-hmm.
It might be mine, but it's not only mine. And what I discovered in those symptoms and experiences, and about collective issues, right? And how I relate to those collective issues. So touching on, for example, sexism and anti-Semitism and things like that.
So how do you feel your own global background figures into this? How
So our history feeds into it, right? So my mom's history and my father's history, even if I don't know all of that history, even if some of it was secret, like my mom's father's story wasn't quite known, right? They kept a lot of secrets and we don't know exactly. But some of that came through to me. And so I can catch the remnants of that and say, but this doesn't quite fit with my life. This can't belong to me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to give it back to that grandfather.
This is amazing. I'm just getting goosebumps now. It's I'm really interested in intergenerational trauma and the way trauma gets passed on, and so you're not even aware.
Yes.
Like you said, sometimes things come out and you can't quite work out what they're doing in your life and why something pops up that you have no idea where it's from, and then you dig deeper and you actually find a connection somewhere. And I mean, it's such a fascinating topic.
Yes. So I wrote, my dissertation was on that.
Oh,
and so yeah, so from that there's so much that can be said, right? There's so much work that we can do with those histories.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that it just help, like you said, it help you understand, but also help you use them, play with them, make them, don't let them take you.
That's it. So I don't have to be taken by it. I can give it back. And I can also play with it and steal its power, right?
Yes.
There's lots of things I can do with it.
I mean, that's the most powerful thing, to be able to take something, look at something and be able to say, I'm not letting that define me or my life.
Yes.
And
but to do that, we need to start off by catching it, right?
yes,
Because so much times it's in us, but we don't even know it.
almost like facing one's demons. It's before you can send them on their way or give them a different role, you have to address them and say,
Yeah.
I acknowledge, you have to acknowledge them.
Yes. And I love that you said give them a different role, because that's exactly it, right? They get a different place at the table.
Because I find that's something that I mean, there's this saying where it's like the only way through pain is through it, right? You can't, it's there. You have to accept it. And it always comes up when someone moves to a new country and says, oh, I miss everything else and I can't be present in this new place. I miss all these other things. And it's one of the things I think, when you move to different countries, you never complete, because you always, part of you, I always like to think like part of my soul is in different places, and we're never all of us in the same place, but you have to acknowledge that, say that's how my life is, and so I have to form a narrative that where I can accept that and live with it rather than constantly trying to avoid something or put it in a box and not think about it. And I think that's what they say when you move to a new place, you have to sit with the pain and the discomfort and the pain of being in a new place. And I'm just using expat life as an example for this, because obviously this is a topic that covers so much more. But in terms of being an expat, you deal with a lot of those things, and they catch you unawares because you don't expect to feel that sense of fragmentation.
I was just thinking as you're saying that that's that aspiration, that longing of the expat who's seeking a home in the world, and that longing keeps us, because we're so focused on these different places that we are at, that we seek our home in places, and actually we are the home. And our work is to hold the tension of all these different places and holding both of them, all of them, the different parts of them in ourselves. And that's home.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. And yet I always feel like I had that sense of I needed to be myself and my people, my relationships. That's what home is. And I always I had that thought, quite abstract thought in my head fairly early on, where I thought, I can't do this. I don't need a physical home, and I'm this is going to be it. My life is just like this. It has to be relationships, but it catches you out.
Yes.
And from time to time, you can't help but be connected to a place and feel like you need to be in that place. Otherwise, you could never be happy. And
yes,
it's that constant struggle in your head where you have to reconcile
yes,
the lifestyle and your beliefs with what you're actually feeling. And I think that's the big issue in this, where sometimes you want to believe it, and that's where you need help.
yes, because we sense that fragmentation all the time.
Yeah.
And how do we sense the fragmentation and still be whole?
Yes.
Right? To have that dual awareness between the fragmented and conflicted parts of ourselves and the way they come together.
Yeah. And then you bring in other people, because it's one thing. And I guess, I mean, this is a whole other subject, and I don't know, we might want to save that for our next conversation, because it's all good, and that's how I felt. Like, I had those ideas. I'm like, I'm not going to be tied to a place. I know I'll be moving. I will have to reconcile all of this in me and just say I have to be my own home base,
Mm-hmm.
but then add a partner, add children to the mix, and everything gets turned upside down.
Everything does get turned upside down.
How did we get here from your dissertation? We were talking about your dissertation and the dream figures.
Yeah, and how when we take those dream figures out of ourselves, when we catch them, and what we find, and how we stay present with them.
Yeah.
And then we brought that back to the expat.
Mm-hmm.
So much, it's like we're Russian dolls. Right.
Yeah. And that's coming back to the different languages and different, being in different environments and how that affects us. It's almost like you can take one layer of the Russian doll off and the other one emerges, and you can
Yes.
also put it back on.
Yes.
And so you're jumping in between, you're in between cultures all the time.
Yes.
There's so many layers.
Yes, that's true.
So you're saying that the dream figures they're kind of like archetypes, and I guess
They're like experiences that we have. Like, for example, the critic is a dream figure. It's a dream figure because we can inhabit the critic, but we also meet the critic in our relationships outside of ourselves. And so that that is like in my book, it's a taker. It's a figure that can take you over or that you internalize.
And again, the critic, just thinking about that in expat terms. Again, moving countries and starting somewhere from scratch makes you incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
It opens up all this. You don't know things, you don't know how things work, and we have to deal with a lot of criticism that is purely because we don't know things. And
That's right.
especially when you come in contact with people who maybe don't have enough empathy. It's like I'm a I know when we moved to the US, and I even spoke the language, I mean, British English, but still it was, I had an advantage, but still there was so many things I had to learn and stumble and be criticized for because I didn't know it. And like you said, it's the internal critic, even more so when you make mistakes because you just didn't know it. But if you internalize that, it can
put you down.
It can make you feel inferior and stupid, and you kind of think, I'm a grown woman and I don't know how to do these things, or I just said a wrong word and I upset someone because I said something I didn't know better, and those things. And so if that keeps happening.
Yes. I'll give you two little anecdotes. One from the first year when I came to the UK. So it wasn't exactly the first year because I was at at LSE here, but when I went back to Switzerland, and then I came when I got married. But after I got married, my husband's friends, they all thought I was rude. And I didn't understand it because no one had ever told me I was rude. In Israel, I was looked at as the Swiss chocolate that's super, super polite. In Switzerland, I was normal. I was considered polite. And I came to London and I was considered rude. And I didn't understand it. And it was something about my directness that was rude. So now
just briefly, what nationality is your husband?
So he was born in England, but his family's from Egypt.
Okay. Oh, adding more layers to
more layers. But now wind to today. Today, at 5 o'clock, I recounted something that happened to me in a group setting about a month ago. I had set a date for an event, and it turns out the same day as a particular big report was coming out, and some people thought it wasn't a good idea. But they didn't tell me that it wasn't a good idea. They said, it's the same day as the report. So I write back, is that good or bad? I get back, it's neither good or bad. So I say, okay, we can go ahead with the event. So I'm telling this today to the people in the group. And one of the English people in the room says, oh, so neither good nor bad. So you're saying neutral. And I said, yes. He says, that's bad. So I'm still making these mistakes, 28 years later.
But wouldn't you say that the English in particular are a very tough society to understand?
Yes, I still struggle.
It is I mean, I had similar experience moving to the UK from Germany, because I was the same thing. People were like, "Oh, you're German, okay, so you're just blunt and direct." And I almost had to hide that side of my personality.
Yeah.
I learned to hide it because yeah, like you said, you consider it rude. And there's the scale of have you read The Culture Map
Yes.
by Aaron yeah, which is brings Israeli culture right up the most direct, the most blunt, straightforward. They're right at the top, and I think that the English are way way down, because it's almost like they say the opposite of what they actually mean.
Yes.
Hence if it's neutral, that's bad. Neutral doesn't.
It's not good. Yeah. So that was another reminder, right? That this is always happening.
Oh, it's always happening, and you always feel slightly inferior, right?
Yes.
So and it takes a long time to be able to show your true colors, but in a way, it's almost like you have to anticipate how people are perceiving you. So you're constantly on guard. You're constantly um watching for other people's reactions, and constantly thinking and overthinking. And I mean, do that for years and years and years. And I mean, it's not surprising that the rate of depression amongst expats is so high.
Depression and anxiety, because when you're constantly second guessing someone else, the emotional cognitive overload is so great, because you could never know what someone else is thinking. You can only ask them, right?
Yeah, you can ask them, and kind of, and also hope for an empathetic person at the other end. But
Yes.
when then add to that different personalities and different, different temperaments, and when you are someone who has internalized, has that constant critic in them anyways, it's a um some people might just go somewhere, blunder into things and laugh about it and laugh it off, and not take it on as, oh, yet another thing I can't do.
Yeah.
But not everyone is like that. And yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so that area, that is something that I really enjoy working with, catching those figures and finding ways to play with them, to shrink them, or to steal their thunder.
Yeah. Change the narrative.
Yeah.
Or create a narrative that allows um allows a more positive way of looking at things. In our lives, we all need takers to just to learn how to navigate things.
Yes.
But if they become too powerful, we can't become ourselves, and we can't
We need
be that present.
we need to differentiate when they're helping us, and when they're putting us down or restricting us. And if they're restricting us, we have to negotiate with them so that they can learn to help us rather than
Yeah.
down.
How would you say you've got the critic? I mean, we keep talking about this, and there's how many others?
36 of them.
36 of them. Um, but so how can you, in practical terms, how can you turn a critic into someone you can play with?
Well, first, it helps to take it out and make it into a figure rather than having this in your head. Because then I can speak to this figure. I can imagine I'm speaking, just as I'm speaking to you, that I'm speaking with this critic, and say, "Oh, you're here again. What do you want from? Are you putting me down, or are you gonna always tell me that I'm not good enough no matter what I do?"
Mm-hmm.
Because then maybe you can just come and sit here next to me and be quiet for a while, or lower the volume, so that I can really understand what you're really meaning, right? Because when you say it so loudly, it shuts me down. It doesn't work. So please sit down. You can start having these kinds of conversations with the figure.
I'm so curious. What other figures are there?
So of the takers, I have 4 of them. One is the taskmaster, which we all know, right? With our great to-do lists. The other is an inquisitor. Kind of, it's like wants to define you all the time. This is who you are. How dare you, right? Put you down all the time. Identifies you.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4th one is a hungry ghost that's never satisfied with anything at all. And often that one is the one that gives us our addictions.
Mm-hmm.
That takes us over, and we don't quite feel that we're in control of what it's doing to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be with work, and it could be with alcohol or drugs or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to always claim that the expat community or people in the expat community have to deal with so much more than non-expats, but I feel like all of those figures are very present, probably and for some people, again, different temperaments, different personalities, more powerful than for others. But I've felt like over the years, I've not necessarily got better at being an expat. It's almost like I feel I've learned tools and things, but I'm getting, I don't want to say weaker, but it's definitely not something I'm getting better at. I don't think, because when people say to you, "Oh, you're an expert at all this, you're a pro, you can move and do all that," it's like, no. Actually, I'm getting more and more exhausted by it. So I have to work harder and harder to build up my resilience and strength. And so I can feel the takers way more than, say, 15 years ago.
But I think that's for a good reason, right? Not because you're weaker, but because you're not marginalizing your vulnerability. If you look back to the 15 years ago, maybe at the time you were oblivious that the critic and the taskmaster, that they were there, but you didn't recognize them. I remember when I started studying, I didn't think I was critical of myself. I know, critical? I'm not critical. I'm a very optimistic person, and I have a good attitude. But once you start unpacking and you start recognizing, oh, that's a criticism. Oh, what's that one? What's that one doing over here? Then you have to work with it. So you're working harder. But that's a good sign, right?
Oh, definitely. And I always feel like the harder it is, and you come out of a phase that was, horrible for whatever reason, you always learn something about yourself, and you always become a little bit more yourself, and kind of maybe stronger in your core, or stronger in your knowing who you are. And so that's why I think when I said I'm getting weaker, that's not the right word. It's not, because it doesn't sound right, and I don't feel weaker. I just feel more exhausted. Yeah, because like you said, I'm working so much harder.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that you say that, and that that's a worthwhile working, right? It's working harder with a purpose.
Yes. Yeah. And that's I think that's definitely that's the difference. It's like thinking back 15 years ago and embarking on this, or even longer when I left my home country. Um, Definitely oblivious to a lot of things. And now with hindsight, they make so much sense.
Mm.
And sometimes you think, oh, if I had acknowledged something or recognized it earlier.
Mm.
Yeah. So
So what are you saying? If you had recognized it earlier,
then maybe I would have saved myself some real heartache. I don't know.
yeah,
But then again, I don't think, I think it, you have to, you have to go through all of this in order to recognize it.
sometimes I think that the stages we go through are important when they happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it if you had known the hardship that it would take to get to where you are today, maybe you wouldn't have embarked on it. And
Yeah.
so it was a good thing that you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. Um,
Yeah, but that's when you get to those moments where you're like, oh, I wish I'd never done this. You
yeah,
know, there's always, I mean, everyone has those. I don't believe it when people say I don't have any regrets. Like, are you? I'm not a believer in that. I say, yeah, I have a lot of regrets, but it's acknowledging that yeah, I totally regret certain things and moves as well.
yeah,
However, I can't go back and change it. So I have to face those regrets, and they might be, the whatever takers they
mhm,
are, and I
yeah,
have to face them and acknowledge them and then turn them into something I can live with.
yeah. That's so true.
It's fascinating, and I feel sometimes um it's almost like, yeah, we only have the one life. I'm trying to squeeze a few different ones into one. That's sometimes what it feels like, and of course that gets too much.
That's true.
But yeah, all of that, I mean, um and we kind of brushed on it, what's home, and you're saying you have to make home in yourself, but how the definition of home and how we approach that and how we get to that, I feel like we should probably save that for next time, because that it brings in our families,
Yes,
it's and how being an expat, with all your different backgrounds and locations, how that affects ourselves, our children, our parents, our friends. And I look forward to talking about that. So I kind of feel that's a good subject for our next conversation.
I look forward to it.
But so you're in the UK now. Let's wrap this up on a more light-hearted note. I want to say, what would you say is your favorite thing about the country that you live in right now?
Um, there's two things that I love about London. One is the great diversity. It's a city with the most diversity in the world right now, and also, I am told, ever in history. Um, so I love that about London. And the other thing that I love is London is a place where if you want something, you can go and find the opportunity to make it so. It's not easy to do anything in London, in England, anything at all. From the simplest thing, the thing that in Geneva is like a 5-minute thing, here is an hour. And yet it's a place where there is opportunity. And I like that about England.
I do too. I mean, London is my favorite city in the whole world, and I don't think that's ever going to change. the sense of diversity and international flair is that's London for sure.
It's palpable here, right?
What is the thing that you miss the most from other places that you've lived that you just can't get in where you are now?
I love the mountains. I miss the mountains. To be able to look up and just see snow on a mountain, I really miss that. And I also miss Jerusalem. I miss the sunset on the stones in Jerusalem. I miss Strasbourg. Strasbourg was a place where I discovered Europe, if you like. You know,
Yeah, we hadn't talked about Strasbourg, that you lived there as well.
Yeah. And so there was something there that about culture that I loved, that it was very settled, and it was in the place, it belonged to the place of France and Germany. I don't really know how to say this exactly, but there was something special about that.
Do you know, I firmly believe that certain places just hold that fascination for us, that you can't compare that with other people. It's your own experience. I totally think that when I have a certain, it's just a gut feeling. I just think it, like you said, it's impossible to name it. It's just a feeling.
Yes.
I love that. I love the unexpected kind of unexplainable part of this as well. And I definitely think that happens to us moving around. We pick up on
all sorts of things.
Yes. Yeah.
So true.
Well, this has been really interesting. And I feel like we've only just started our conversation, but we'll have to wrap it up for today. Kind of take care of my voice now before it goes completely. Thank you so much for making time. I know it's late evening now for you.
Yes, it's a pleasure, and I very much enjoyed having this conversation with you.
Thank you, and I look forward to next time.
Me too.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was part 1 of my 2 conversations with Lea. I absolutely loved talking to her about all these subjects, and I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. I feel like there is so much warmth and wisdom and reflection in Lea's words. I'm pretty sure there will be a few expats out there listening to this who will feel really understood. As I said at the beginning, if you are interested in Lea's work or would like to connect with her, then I've put all the contact details in the show notes. And that's it from me for today. Take care and see you in part 2.